Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump's wall is a very, very bad idea. Now, I'm not talking about morals or ethics or money here, though the money is definitely worth talking about. I've traditionally been an open borders type, and I've made some angry videos on the topic. But lately, I've begun to question that a bit. I think we might not need to take in as many low-skilled people as we do. I go back and forth. I'm a bit confused, honestly. I need to do more research. But I do know that Donald Trump's wall is useless. The vast majority of low-income workers do not come here illegally. They come here legally. And they don't come from Mexico. Not anymore, anyway. Don't trust me? Let's check out some stats. In 2000, 1.6 million people were detained at the border for trying to enter the United States illegally. In the years since, something pretty dramatic has happened. But don't take it from me. Listen to this guy here, who is so anti-immigration that the Southern Poverty Law Center calls his organization a hate group.
Mexican immigration has gone down. That's an unquestionable fact. It's still significant. I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of illegal immigrants from Mexico still coming every year, but it is lower. And in fact, last year, Border Patrol apprehensions on the Mexican border were actually about 52 or 3% non-Mexican, almost all of them Central American. The rest were Mexican. And part of the reason for that is there's almost no working age men left in rural Mexico to move here. I mean, they've sort of run out of people to move here. Because what we saw, the reason we saw that huge flow into the United States wasn't really NAFTA. It was that Mexico was modernizing. And like every country that modernizes, people move from the country to the city as agriculture becomes more productive. You don't need 10 people to farm the same plot of land. You have one person does the same work.
Now, there are two ways that people typically argue against taking this information seriously. The first is the idea that the liberals are somehow getting in the way of enforcement, and that's why the numbers are down. That couldn't be further from the truth. The Department of Homeland Security points out that since 9/11, the Border Patrol's staffing has doubled. Other governmental resources have been switched to the border. Hundreds of miles of fences have been built, and the whole thing is now policed by drones. Illegal crossings of the border are down by 2/3, despite the fact that both the Bush and Obama administrations poured billions of dollars into border enforcement. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that we need less enforcement at the border, just that we don't need dramatically more. We don't need a wall. Our money is better spent elsewhere. The second tactic that people use to try to minimize this information is to claim that there are still hordes of Guatemalans and Hondurans coming. This is pretty transparently ridiculous. Mexico is a country of 127 million people. Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and El Salvador combined have under 40 million people. And they're all over 1,000 miles from any relevant border crossing. Most of the migrant poor from these countries get absorbed in Mexico or in the large cities of their own countries. Child migration from these countries was briefly an issue, but at its highest, it amounted to tens of thousands of people a year, not hundreds of thousands. As I pointed out elsewhere, thanks to birth rates, the problem of Latin American immigration is pretty much over. We do not need Trump's wall. I think immigration is something that we should maybe discuss more openly in the United States, but Donald Trump's wall is useless. In fact, if you truly care about the issue of low-skilled migration into the United States, you should probably recognize that this obsession with the wall and illegal immigrants is a distraction, not a way to address the real issue. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And I'm currently running a fundraising thing on my crowdfunding page at Patreon. I'm trying to get my income up to U.S. minimum wage. I'd love to be able to keep doing this, and I'd be grateful if you considered supporting the work. Thanks.